Okay, mate. So I was going to say, welcome to the empty room. But welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you'll find the teaching useful and enjoyable. We've been talking about this 4 facts for happy chaps. But before we get into that, we'll begin as we normally do by doing a little breathing meditation. Then we'll take refuge together, generate a mind of enlightenment. So please get comfortable in your seats and allow your body to relax. And as the body breathes itself, become aware of the movements that are taking place when you inhale and exhale breath. And on the exhalation of the breath, allow the body to relax just a little more. And as the body relaxes just that little bit more, keep the mind focused on this process of relaxation. Imagine the appearance of Shakyamuni Buddha, his spiritual entourage, and your spiritual guides appearing before you, radiant with golden light. And picture your parents, your close friends, family, in fact, all sentient beings seated surrounding you. And recognize our shared desires for happiness and freedom from suffering. And think that because all phenomena dependently exist, it's possible to put an end to suffering and its causes and develop the necessary wisdom and compassion to benefit all sentient beings. To develop the wisdom and compassion, we need to rely upon others who have done just that. So the others are the Buddha, the spiritual entourage, and the spiritual guides, and all the sentient beings who surround us. So decide to develop wisdom and compassion and the skillful means that flow from the union of these two to put an end to your own suffering, to develop all of your good qualities, and to help others do the same. And then to affirm this decision, join me in saying, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. In response to this aspiration of ours, think that colorful lights and nectars pour forth from the heart of the Buddha, and they wash over you and over your parents and all the people surrounding you. And the wrong views that we hold and the arrogance and selfishness that spring from these wrong views are washed away. And being clean and clear, the four immeasurable thoughts spring to mind. And we decide to develop these four immeasurable thoughts of love and compassion, joy and equanimity, and establish all beings in these same four thoughts. And so we say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment for friends and the hatred for enemies. And in response to this aspiration of ours, again, colorful lights and nectars pour out of the heart of the Buddha. They shower down upon us and all the beings surrounding us. And everything that hinders these four boundless thoughts is washed away. And cleansed by wisdom and kindness, and with a sense of appreciation for the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the beings of the refuge field, we wish to gather together the two accumulations of merit and wisdom to become enlightened. And so we say to the beings of refuge, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. So while we're saying these prayers and imagining that the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are present, we need to recollect, though, it all seems real to us. In fact, it's not. It's not as real as it seems, because none of these appearances are existing from their own side. And how things do exist is to exist independence upon names and ideas. So get ready now to give away all your good ideas and all your wrong ideas. In fact, all ideas of how things exist. And in the absence of conception, imagine a wonderful, pure land arising. I think that you want to offer this to the Buddha for all sentient beings. And then say along with me, this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned Mount Meru, four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratnamandavakam Naryatayami. So we've released the offering. It's free from our holding, our clinging, and our grasping. And the Buddha accepts it. And he looks down at us and smiles with delight. And we look up into his eyes. And we find great kindness and wisdom. And so we ask of the Buddha to please help us stop all the wrong thoughts that we have about ourselves and phenomena, and to let all the right thoughts arise. And whatever obstacles we might have, whether they be inner, outer, or secret, may these also be removed. And so we say to the Guru Buddha, please bless us and all beings like us to understand the nature of phenomena, to develop all of our good qualities on the basis of equanimity, and to remember the kindness of all sentient beings, wish to repay that kindness, and do it on the basis of love, compassion, and wisdom. Help us develop a mind that seeks Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In response to these petitions, a replica of the Buddha leaves his heart, and this emanation of light moves through space and comes to rest above the crown of your head. It begins to descend. It's down through the crown of your head, down through your throat, and into your chest, and stops just above your heart. And its radiance begins to expand, filling your chest, your arms and legs and head and mind with light. And the light goes out through the pores of your skin. And it begins to fill the 10 directions of space. And wherever sentient beings abide, they abide within space. And so they're touched, absorbed by this light, and utterly transformed into a fully awakened state. And a sense of great accomplishment arises within you. And you feel the light start to withdraw from the 10 directions of space. Light withdraws and re-enters your heart. And things feel a little bit more solid now. You can feel the process of breathing. You can feel yourself seated upon your seat. You feel embodied. And you understand that the meditation was one of imagination. But this process has involved the mind. So the mind has been imprinted with the visualization, with your pure intention. So this acts as a cause or condition to bring about the actual result of enlightenment for the benefit of others. So feel pleased with this. So you acknowledge it and then breathe in deeply through your nostrils and exhale through the mouth. And in your own time, allow your eyes to flutter open and move your body in whichever way you'd like to. So again, you feel quite at ease in your seat. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Susan.
Hi,
So
Eddie.
welcome
Hi,
along.
everyone. Hi, Eddie.
Okay, let's have a look to see what we've done. So,
Eddie,
um, yep,
before we get started, could you do me a favor? Would you go
sure,
back to your seven to the slide on your for your seven limb prayer? I have a question about it.
sure.
So let's say we're all here and we're you know we're accumulating merit, and you have somebody specific you want to donate you want to dedicate your merit for, and Miffy does, and I do, and Barbara does, and Susan does, and Shayla does. We all do. So how does it work? So it says I dedicate my own and others' merits. How do I get to dedicate the merits of others?
Yeah. Well, by um, remembering or recollecting that self and other, um, so others don't, self and others exist dependently. Right? So there can't be any others that are independent of you. That's an impossibility. Right? So you only exist in relationship to other, and other exists only in relationship to you. But there's another thing to also consider, that is that you are the other from the point of view of someone else. So from the point of view of someone else, they are self and you are other. Right? So when you offer the merit, you can offer other, the merit of other. Is that
You hit
okay?
the nail. That was right on the head. Thank you.
Okay, mate. Thank you for asking. I would never have thought of it myself until I just said it. But great. Yeah. So that's great, Mike. So something must be going into my own heart and head too. Yeah. Let's have a look. So we've looked at the truth of dukkha and the truth of origin already. And when we looked at them, we looked at the nature of each of them, what we're to do when we understand the nature, and then the result of what we've done. And each of these truths have four aspects. And today we're going to be looking at the truth of the path, is it? Was the truth of cessation? One of them. But what
Cessation.
it's the truth of cessation. So that's right, effect then cause. So truth of cessation. So just like we did with the truth of dukkha and the truth of origin, I will define it. Then we'll look at these three cycles again of nature, activity, and result, and also how we can practice it in terms of being a beginner, um, sort of middling stage, and great accomplishment. We'll look at the four characteristics, and we'll look at the four misconceptions these four characteristics are to overcome. Um, where we know of this, we can apply this knowledge each day. To help me present this material, again, probably the what I think here is the best book that we could get into is this one called Samsara, Nirvana, and Buddha Nature. So you can see here is the demon of impermanence, and he's holding the wheel of the 12 links in his hands. I suggest this book because it's deep, wide, but it's readable. It's well written. And especially the last bit, this part of Buddha nature is really good because it shows us that the freedom is already present. It's just been hindered. And if we can remove the hindrances, our natural freedom can be discovered. So, so I like this book. And of course, I've drawn most of the material in the slides and things from this particular book. Why I've done that is because it's all there. And all the other books are all very good too, very readable. In fact, there's nothing here that I could say you wouldn't understand. Yeah. I mean, I know you can read, you've all gone to school. You don't need to have a PhD to read this material and go, I get it. And what I like about it many times is the different tables that are in it. So I always find a table helps me sort of get it all together, understand it. So let's have a little look through at the definition first of all. So this truth of cessation is defined as a freedom. And how does it come about? Well, it's induced by the uninterrupted path which induces it. It's quite a mouthful, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? A freedom induced by the uninterrupted path which induces it, in which a corresponding obscuration has been abandoned. So I guess we need to break this down a bit, don't we? So like, what the heck does this all mean, right? So I think the first thing we can get our head around is a sense of freedom. Right? So I put this up here about so we've got some chains and the chains are being broken. So this, of course, reminds me of slavery. So somebody's been held by chains. So for us, the chains are karma and delusion. And now the chains have been broken. So now you are free. And I think we all have an already natural understanding what it means to be free. So here it's the mind that is free. What it's free from? Some sort of obscuration, an obscuration that is suitable to be free. This is a corresponding obscuration. Now, this has been abandoned. It's like one part of it's like a link of the chain has been cut. So what's cut that link in the chain? Well, it's an uninterrupted path has done that. So this uninterrupted path is the wisdom that realizes emptiness. And what is interrupted is our perception of suffering being true. So what we're seeing now is the falsity of our own beliefs. The falsity has fallen away. And what is revealed is freedom. So I'll give you sort of like try and explain a little what that sort of feels like. So have you ever, you're probably all sitting on chairs right now, right? So have you ever, probably when you're much younger, when you're a kiddie, you might have done this to somebody or they might have done it to you. So there's your chair, right? And you're going to sit down on it, and because you expect it, you can sit on your chair, can't you? It's solid, right? And whenever you sit on the chair, it's always there and it's solid. So this day comes, you go to sit on your chair, but some little kiddie is stuck up behind you and pull the chair away, right? And you go, whoa, and like what happens? You go, oh, you get this shock, don't you? Because what was solid is not there. This is like what happens here. What you thought was true like it's not. So this space opens up. So it's not that, and when the space is, you become aware of the space of your own mind. And so there's an absence of what was thought to be true, the absence of what was thought to be solid and real. And in that absence, there's just awareness. Your own awareness is there. And you discover the natural freedom of your own awareness. And in that natural freedom, an obscuration has been abandoned. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I'm just kind of going, wow. I'm a little confused about why it's called interrupted and uninterrupted, because it's like our obscurations interrupted, but here it's called uninterrupted. So I don't quite just get what it refers to.
So, so before it becomes uninterrupted, it is interrupted, as Miffy's pointed out, right? So what's interrupting this direct abandonment? What it is I say this, it's the conception, it's the idea that there's a real me and a real problem. So we've looked at this real me and we've looked at the real things, and we find that God, it's not there. Right? But there's still a sense of me looking at the absence. So there isn't. So when we start doing this, we start with ourselves, right? We look for a real me, just like later on you look for the real suffering. And when you look for a real me, no real me is found. And that finding of no real me, and the experience of it is a me seeing there's no real me. Right? So there's an interruption there. There's two things going on there, isn't there? Me seeing not me. Not real me. There's a me seeing that. So what happens? So what's causing the interruption is it's on an intellectual level. It's a conception. It's an idea. It's a correct idea, but it's still an idea, and we've got it, and we know we've got it. But then, like I said, you keep doing this, and your concentration has become more deeper and more stable. At some stage, what's going to happen is it's going to break through. And this is called uninterrupted. Your path, your way of seeing, not me, breaks through. And so now it's called, our wisdom is uninterrupted by the conception. I'll give you another example.
Eddie, can you just stop the share? And then also Barbara's got her hand up, just letting you know.
Yeah. So another example is, have you ever had the experience of like looking out of a window or looking outwards, and you don't realize there's a window there, and you walk towards what's there, you go boom. You go, oh God, like I didn't realize there was like the window there. Right? And like you want to go outside, right? There's a window there. It's clear. So you go, oh, okay, I've got to go in. I've got to open the window. I've got to slide the door across, right? And then you go out there. So this is like this experience that where your own conception is like the window, and you can't get through. You can clearly see what's out there, which is the absence of self in this case, but there's still the idea that there's you looking out there. And then over time, like the what's interrupting you falls away.
So that's like being obstacled. You've got this invisible obstacle that then.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just like it's a subtle conception of there's still a me looking at this phenomena of an absence. But over time, it's like what you're looking at and the person looking become one thing. So let me take Barbara, you go first, and then I'll respond to you, Susan.
Okay.
Okay. That's not the thing.
So the conventional me
Yeah.
is looking for the ultimate me that does
Yeah.
not exist.
That's right. That's right. And it sees the lack of that ultimate me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And so what happened in the beginning part is like there's still a sense of the conventional me looking there and seeing that I'm not ultimately there. Right? And then over time, there's this conventional me that's looking for us ultimately there, that also sort of vanishes. And when you come out of it, you know, oh my God, so I only exist conventionally. I don't exist ultimately. But while you're in this what they call the stages of accumulation and preparation, there's still a sense of a barrier. You know, it's like the idea of like the window, right? You know, there's a barrier, but it's like
mine is much denser than a window. I mean, I get the terminology, Eddie, but boy, oh boy, mine is not like a window separating the two. Mine is a really dark and it's a cloudy window. It's and again, I figure if I can at least get the understanding of the terminology, then correctly, then I can start working with it.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. That's right, Barbara. Yeah, that's what we need to do. We've got to work with the terminology and the ideas of the language. When it becomes clearer, then what you understand becomes clearer. You know, your experience becomes clearer to yourself.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Okay, Susan.
Eddie, I'm actually confused by the syntax of that sentence itself. I find it confusing. A freedom uninterrupted, a freedom induced by the uninterrupted path that induces it. Why does it say induced twice? And the second induced, does it refer back to freedom or the uninterruptedness of the path?
Okay, let me go back. Can I go back to the could you just say that again, please, Susan? Just read the definition again.
The syntax of that sentence confuses me because it uses induces twice. And the second induce is followed by it. Does the it refer back to freedom or does it refer back to the uninterruptedness of the path? I just can't quite get that.
Yeah, I know. It's not. When I was doing this study up at CI, this is, a place for study, these definitions, I tell you, they were like, I was often holding my head going, I don't know what you're talking about. And this is why I was thinking, this needs to be broken down to try and get just an understanding of what's going on.
Well, so why does it say induced twice? Why does it say induced twice?
I'll show you why, right? So again, analogy. So when I was a kid, my first job was working in the forest, and I had to. My job, Susan, was I had a big slasher, and I had to go up through the forest, and I had to clear away all the ferns, cut the fern away, to find the trees, the little trees. So imagine this: I've got the slasher. This is the way to bring about freedom to see the trees. Right? The slasher. This is like the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? You pull it back and you go coming down. This is inducing, cut. The ferns fall away. There it is. So what you've got here is a mind that is naturally free, except it's really focused. This is the concentration and the wisdom are combined. And now it goes like the bigger it shows you, whoa, what's already there.
Well, I think I see what you mean, but if you take away the second part, if you take away which induces it, will it still mean the same thing? I can understand it better that way.
Yeah, you need to keep that which induces it, because this which induces it means it's the method of insight and compassion.
Then what does the first induced by mean?
So that's what inducing it. It's like the force that shows you the freedom. It's like that part's like the method of it. So the freedom is natural. It's always been there. Now it's got to be induced. It's got to be seen by you doing something. That's what induces it, is the doing of it. So this uninterrupted path is going to show you that's the inducing. It's not me having.
I think I see what you mean.
Yeah.
We will get to it again and again, won't we? But
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so like so with the when you like with my analogy of the slasher, right? So that's your the like it's like the when a slasher is coming down, this is like you say, this is wisdom and compassion, or wisdom and bodhicitta, the method, right? Is a slasher. So as it's coming down, there's nothing that's obstructing it. That's the freedom is there, right? And all it's going to reveal is more freedom.
I like that the freedom is there under the undergrowth. The
Yeah,
space
that's
is
right.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and all this is done is just reveals more of it. It's a bit like the idea of like you're standing and you're about to sit down on your seat, right? So this is your uninterrupted path to come down on your seat, right? So as you come down, you're moving through freedom. It's free already, isn't it? It's coming down, and you're expecting to land on something solid, right? But it's not there when somebody pulls the chair out. So you keep going down through freedom, and you experience that. And it's like shocking. But it was already there. You just didn't realize it. It's always been that way. Anyway, I mean, this is what they often say. So Geshe used to say, when you try and talk about this, use similes and metaphors, because that's really the only way you can really, to sort of get something close to it.
Eddie, I really like the whole glass ceiling bumping into the glass door. It adds a whole nother dimension to it that it's very experiential.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like you sort of get Barbara, like, even if it's all black to you, dark to you, there's still a sense of you witnessing the darkness, isn't there? But yeah, so it's sort of like that. That's what I mean by that. So that's where the interruption is: me and it, self and other, experience and experiencer. But as time goes by, there's a falling away of that barrier, and that's what's called that's uninterrupted. So the path doesn't stop with with the conception of self and other. being different. Okay, we'll just put this on. I mean, we won't get everything that I say, and I won't either. I don't get everything I read, like straight off. So just let it bubble away there, Susan. And perhaps you'll read a better analogy than what I've said, or hear somebody explain this in such a way that you go, now I get it. Because believe me, it's not uncommon to not get it, especially first time hearing it in this type of language. So it leads me to, no wonder the Buddha had to explain this at least 3 times to his disciples, right? And one guy got it right the first time, and he had to do it again, and the next 2 guys got it right, and the third time, the 2 guys got it. Oh yeah, I get it now. So I said it's probably the same for us, So in terms of these cessations, a cessation is another term for a freedom. And from the middle way consequence school, a cessation is an emptiness. It's an experience of an emptiness. So cessations are ultimate truths. But when we first introduced to them, because you can look at yourself as, like you said last week, you're like a beginner, right? So if we see ourselves as a beginner and we first hear about this, what is the cessation that perhaps we could understand? And our first one, we can understand, I think, quite easily and simply. And this is temporary freedom from unfortunate rebirths. So all of us are experiencing that right now. But we are temporarily free from something much worse than what we're experiencing right now. It's a bit like saying that right now, we are not in prison. Then we're not. but as you know, you could easily find yourself there, right? And, you don't need to do anything really wrong. I mean, you might just find some people disagree with the way you think. They go, right, now we're putting you in jail. But right now, we're not in that situation. This is the first type of cessation I think we can comprehend and go, yeah, okay, I am free from that. And that's where we find ourselves. And so we've got to, just like we don't want to find ourselves in prison in this life, we go, right, I don't want to find myself in the unfortunate rebirth states in the next life either. So I've got to keep myself out of there. The second is, of course, freedom from an uncontrolled rebirth within cyclic existence. So we've already, unless we're bodhisattvas, I don't know, maybe you are, I don't know. It's like, we're here, right? Our body and mind are under the control of our karma and delusions. So that's where we find ourselves now. So we think, well, is it possible to be free from them? And the Buddha is saying, yes, there is. This is really possible. And that's what we talk about more next week, the path. How do you bring about the freedom? But yes, it is possible to be free. And the third type of perspective you can take is, even if I was free from cyclic existence and I was no longer taking rebirth in uncontrolled ways, am I able to help all beings effortlessly and spontaneously? And the answer would have to be like no. And you go, so what hinders that? Because I have, I realize the selflessness of myself and others. That's true. But you'll also know they can't directly get at the minds of others. So this is where, what stops you is called the cognitive obscurations. And so one of the more subtle cognitive obscurations is, there's still a sense of me. that wants to be free, and me can't free you. I can only free myself. And so this is like a cognitive obscuration. Now, when we try to bring about these cessations, these emptinesses, we have to know, like what are they? So this leads us to our next slide. We talk about the nature of a cessation. How do you identify it? So it's identified as being nirvana. Nirvana is an instance of true cessation. Again, now we need to go like, what's nirvana? What is this phenomenon called nirvana? And we'll find there are many different explanations for it. One of the ones I really like is just the ultimate nature of the mind. The mind is empty of any intrinsic nature. And that's what you see. You know, that's what I say, the freedom is like, oh my gosh. And when it's experienced, you can say, this is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha. This is what it is. Absolute freedom. And you'll know that in the traditions like the Kagyu and the Nyingma in particular, they really make this really important. It's like, look, the freedom's already present. The mind has never been inherently existent, never been imprisoned. The only real imprisoning thing that's going on is wrong ideas, wrong conceptions, and our belief in them. This habitual belief, a wrong belief. So how do we, what do we do to bring about these cessations? We need to remember the truth, basically. And we know, so what hinders the truth is wrong conceptions, wrong ideas. And so we've got to identify our wrong ideas and like see through them, see that they're actually not true. So again, another analogy I could offer, when you must have heard there's many stories where people have grown up thinking that the woman they're with is their mother, their actual mother, their birth mother. And then maybe they get to 18, 19, sometimes it's in their 30s, they discover actually she's not. Right? My actual mother is the sister of this woman who's passing herself off as my mother. So me myself, I come from what do you call a native culture in New Zealand called the Maoris, and it's not uncommon there, whereby if a young girl gave birth to a child and she's she's young, and so what would often happen there was that the child would be adopted by an older sister, and the older sister would play the role of mother. So this happened in my family. So my mother gave birth to a boy before me. She was young, maybe 14, 15. And then she met my father. Right? So I was thinking like, this could be problematic, right? Young woman with a little child, does a new guy want to be the father to this? So they decided, give him to my sister. So mum's sister raised this boy as mother. And then mum married my father. And then I don't know, when I was in my, I was 21 when I suddenly discovered, my gosh, I've got an older brother, right? So I met him at the funeral, right? So it's like this big shock, But it was a big shock for this fellow too. It was like, Yeah, you're burying your actual mother. So he'd grown up for 20 odd years thinking, oh, here is my mother. And now, so when you discover that, you drop the whole idea. You have what they call a cessation, the belief that something was true. You discover it's not true. You don't go back and make it up again and go, like, no, that thing's over. So this is again, an idea of what we mean by a cessation. Right? You have a wrong idea, then you discover the truth about it, and you never go back to that wrong idea. You can't adopt the wrong idea anymore because you know the truth. And this is what a cessation is. You can't go back to inherent existence when you know things are absent of inherent existence. And you thought things were true and then discovered the absence of that. You discover what was true is actually a falsity. So here again, we need to find these distorted ideas and look into them. And when we actually acknowledge, oh my God, that is a distorted idea, that's a wrong idea. Well, once you get that, you don't go back. And this seeing and not going back, that's the cessation. A way of thinking has been abandoned. But to have that happen, it's got to be experienced by yourself. When you have the experience, you know. And so what's really interesting here in terms of the truth of dukkha and its causes, so we're bringing a cessation about, so this is the realization, and it's going to be strange, right? Because the realization is just on a conventional level, these things, suffering and its causes, exist. But ultimately, no, they don't exist at all. They don't truly exist. They exist actually in mere name. So when you realize this, you go, okay, so now this is being experienced by me. So now we come, our next little slide's going to be like, what's interesting? So I'm sure there's a heap that's really interesting. So Susan, you go ahead and speak first. Oh, sorry, Barbara. Yep.
I just have a question, Eddie, on that middle slide. Practice mindfulness of the 4 distorted attributes. I don't know what the 4 distorted attributes are.
That's what's next.
Okay.
No problem. That's coming. Okay, let's go Thank there. You're welcome. Let's do that. Here we go. And so this is what we need to find. And we'll put aside the meditation now. I've only got like half an hour to go, so we need to I need to move along a little. So the 4 attributes of the truth of cessation are, first, that cessations actually exist. It's possible to bring about a cessation, and it's a state of peace. It's magnificent, and it is freedom. So these are the 4 actual attributes. And now we need to know, okay, so what are the 4 distorted thoughts? Right? So we'll take each of these, and then we'll look at its opposite, the distorted thought. We begin with cessation. So we start off with saying, what's the instance of true cessation is nirvana. That's its nature. So here you can see Nirvana is the cessation of dukkha. And you go, why? Because being a state in which the origins of dukkha have been abandoned, it ensures that dukkha will no longer be produced. So again, it's like I can see you looking at this and go, oh, what the heck does that mean again? Right? So again, so this is why I recommend that particular book, Samsara Nirvana and Buddha Nature. It'll go into it, and so I'm doing it trying fast snapshots. So in those books, of course, it's explained in a more leisurely fashion. But again, if you look at like the analogy that I used in relationship to my mother and her sister raising my mother's first child, here it's saying that like once you know something directly, experientially, that is factual, you can't go back the other way. You no longer produce that idea. This is what it's sort of saying here. This is what it sort of means. It's like, for instance, another simple one I just popped into my mind right now was that if you're married if you're in a relationship and you think everything is going along fine and you're truthful to one another, everything's hunky dory, and then you find out your partner's actually been cheating on you. You can't go back and think, oh, it's all hunky dory, right? Everything's working out fine, right? That idea has been shattered, hasn't it? Like you can't sort of like deny it happened. It's a fact. It took place. So it's the same sort of thing here. It's like when you see the fact that freedom exists, that the mind has been free, it's experienced freedom. You you don't go back and say, oh no, that never took place. That never happened. Like a cessation took place, right? You experienced freedom. You experienced something factual. There's no denying that. I'm sure you've all had moments like this, and something was like, wow, like it happened, right? So this is what this is sort of getting at. These is sort of saying when this takes place, you can't go backwards.
It does make sense, Eddie. It's, those analogies are pretty good.
Okay, so that's the major thing. So this is the first thing to get to the station. So now what's the wrong idea, right? The distorted idea. So this is to dispel the misconceptions that afflictions are an inherent part of the mind and liberation is impossible. So until we have this, true cessation, we don't really know, do we? We really hope it's possible, and we're taking the word of other people who've done all the work and so forth. To go, okay, so you guys are telling me it's all possible, and we've got to go like, well, why is it possible? Why is it possible for the mind to be free? And then you can sort of look at this and go, well, why is it not possible? Why do you think it's impossible for the mind to be free? And then the answer would have to be because afflictions are an inherent part of the mind. And so there's no way we can be free. If this were true, it's true, you couldn't be free. The thing is, though, is it true? Miffy, you got your hand raised?
This one always strikes me because, there's the popular kind of thought that, well, anger or jealousy are always going to be with us and there's nothing we can do. And, I come across that in Western psychology, and yet I know in my own experience, I have less jealousy now than I did, and I have less anger than I did, and that's just a fact. So, this idea that it's part of our instinctual makeup and we can never do anything about it, that's just just a Western idea that's not backed up with fact.
No, that's right. Yeah, so they're just many of them are ideas, and that's all they are. Susan, yep.
I really get the part we can reduce our anger and all of our afflictions, and that leads to much better results. And but how do we know? How do we know for certain that afflictions are not inherent in the mind? How is that proven?
Okay, so if they're inherent, they should be able to be found.
I'm sorry, Eddie, could you
If
please
they
say that?
inherently exist, if they inherently exist, they really exist, right? They have to really exist. That's what it means. If you think something inherently exists, it really does exist. And it exists without dependence upon you. Right?
Meaning you'd be able to really identify there it
Yeah, yeah.
is.
The mind and this affliction, they're the same thing. Right? The mind and the affliction are one and the same thing. That's what it means to be inherent. They're real.
Eddie, what does it mean, primordial mind? What does primordial mean in that sense?
Um, like, always, deepest nature.
Buddhist nature?
Yeah, so it depends. So I think they have different meanings of primordial. So when
I hear Venerable Robina say it a lot, and
yeah, yeah.
but I've heard other people say it, and it seems to mean something different. I don't understand it.
So often when they talk about primordial mind, they're talking about what's called clear light mind, which basically again it's got two parts you've got to remember here. So the primordial mind is the beginningless and endless mind that is empty of any intrinsic nature. The most subtle, beginningless, endless, empty mind. So primordial means that type of mind, but also the fact that it lacks its inherent existence. Primordially, like empty, like everything is empty from the get-go. It's always been empty. So, but you've got this phenomena, and this is the beginningless, endless mind. So again, when they talk about this, to how to like try to understand this, Susan, there's lots of analogies. So one of the common ones that they use is the idea of like getting a glass of water, a dirty glass of water. So the water looks like it's pervaded by dirt. It's dirty. Right? It looks like it, doesn't it? We say that's dirty water. And what it means to us is like the water is dirty. Right? So that'd be like real dirty water. Certainly looks like it. So then they put it up there and they just leave it alone. They say, just leave it alone. And what they find is the dirt sinks down to the bottom, and what's actually there is clear water. So the dirt's not a part of the mind. It can be removed from, the dirt can be sifted out of the water, and the natural purity of the water is there. Now, if the dirt and the water were inherent, that's impossible. Because the dirt and the water are a single entity of one nature. So if you were to get rid of all the afflictions of the mind, you'd have to get rid of the mind. Right? The only way to stop the mind being afflicted is to get rid of your mind. So there's no evidence of that anywhere. But yeah, you have to lose mind to get rid of your afflictions. You need to get rid of the mind to get rid of your afflictions.
But Eddie, there are actually people that subscribe to that, and that's
Oh, of
exactly
course
the
there are.
conclusion they come to.
That's right. So and yeah, I know. So it doesn't make much sense, though, does it? It's actually like we were talking about last night in a few. Was it think before you speak and read before you think?
That's the one.
So and then not only this, so okay, so in the beginning we need to read and think about this, right? However, what you can actually do is find it in experience itself. So this is where meditation is so important. It's to go, okay, let's just have a look. So has anybody like is we could go, what is anger? Anger is one of the afflictions, isn't it? Like what is it?
Just stop the share for a moment,
Okay.
Eddie.
These are I I better I have to keep moving too.
Yeah, I know you're never going to get there today,
I
so
know, that's right. Okay, so what the idea is, Susan, is first of all to go sort of identify things like if something were intrinsic, if something were inherent, how would it exist? The answer is really simple. It would be not dependent upon anything, because that is the opposite of dependent arising. So it's not dependent upon anything. So does anything like that exist? Can we find anything like that? And you're right, Barbara. There's nothing like that. So the nature of the afflictions and the mind cannot inherently exist. But so they can't be an inherent part of the mind.
Because there are causes and conditions.
Yeah, they depend, don't they? And how do we know? So we'll just ask yourself right now. Go, hey, are you angry right now? And you might go, well, no. Well, you should be if anger was an inherent part of the mind, because it will always be there. It doesn't depend on you. In fact, it doesn't even depend on the mind. So our straight up experience tells us, hey, it's not there. It can't be there because if it were there, I should be angry right now. And I'm not. I'm not depressed right now. I'm not really happy, extraordinary. I'm not any of those mental states right now.
What if it could be there sporadically?
And it wouldn't be inherent because it'd be coming and going. It's got to not depend on anything. But that's yes, Miffy.
this is a real difference between our inherited Western psychology and Buddhism, because there is this underlying assumption in Western psychology that while we're not angry now, it is there deep underneath us, and we kind of second guess ourselves. So we're both angry and not angry at the same time. And that's just so deep in our culture that we think that's how it must be. But it's an impossibility. It hasn't even been kind of questioned in Western psychology, yet it permeates our whole culture.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, another interesting thing about inherent existence. So this is the thing to get your head around, Susan. It's always appearing there, but it's not there. So this is what you've got to get your head around. Inherent existence, though it does not exist at all, there is nothing inherently existent. That was like I said, to be inherently existent means it doesn't depend upon anything. Now, there's nothing you can find that doesn't exist, that exists like that, right? So that's a fact. Now, the other funny, interesting thing is, it appears to be there. It appears to all of our conventional consciousnesses, phenomena appear to inherently exist. Because they appear there We believe it's there. Right? So this is why so many, like you're saying, so many people
Yeah.
believe it. They just
That
believe
makes really good
it. Makes
sense
really good
why
sense.
it's stuck in
Yeah,
our mind like that. Yep.
yeah. And
I'm
the
going to
only
give you the
yeah,
wiggle on now, Eddie.
okay. And the only way you can know that appearances don't exist inherently is by questioning the appearance. By saying, okay, if it inherently exists, it means it exists without any dependence whatsoever. You go, well, hang on a minute. There's me in this phenomenon called inherent existence. There's a dependency right there. The only way I can know it is with my consciousness. So there's a dependency. Right? So it doesn't stand up. So again, so like I said, it takes a little, um, time, and you've got to sort of, like you're saying, Barbara, before, to like tease it apart and go like, what does this word mean? What does this mean? What are you talking about? And then sit back and now play around with it in your own experience. Don't just quickly like get it and I got it, I understand, and now move on to the next thing. The stuff, it means something really deep about our own experience. So we've got to check it, and we check it through reasoning and then experience itself. The consequences. If it were so, what would be the consequences? And it just doesn't add up. This is why you often hear the teacher say, yeah, there's a discrepancy between what appears to us and how these phenomena exist. If we don't question the appearances, our appearances arise looking to us as if they intrinsically exist. And remember, I was saying on Sunday to another class, try and make it really simple for yourself. Intrinsic existence, inherent existence, all those terms mean not dependent. Not dependent on anything. Not dependent upon causes and conditions, parts, my awareness, my ability to think. It's already there. Not dependent.
Eddie, time is overing. It's 1:15.
You watch me go. So what's peace, right? So this is this is the actual thing. So nirvana is peace. Why? Because it's a separation in which the afflictions have been eliminated. It's lovely, isn't it? I mean, we always want to be at peace, be peaceful. And we've experienced situations when we've been at peace. But these afflictions come back, right? And you go, why? It's because they dependently exist. And there's also this clinging and grasping because of the karma and the affliction. But the wisdom realizing emptiness puts an end to this. That brings about actual peace. So to understand peace, yeah, this can easily happen to you. When we say, and you'll often get it when people say, I just want to be like at peace. And so they have a sense of peace. And then it gets disturbed again. And then they're not at peace. And, so we've got to do something else. We've got to go on a retreat or something, be at peace. And then, it's not stable. So don't think that ordinary states of peace, peacefulness, and being at ease are a true cessation. They're not. Like I said, true cessations are emptinesses, absences. An emptiness is an absence. And this absence can be experienced. So it's the absence of karma and affliction. The mind that used to be affected by karma and affliction is no longer affected. So a state of peace exists. Now, this is, like I said, magnificent.
Eddie, can I just jump in and just say one thing about that?
Sure.
That one with the peace, it's quite tricky because I just find it's only when my mind, when I'm having difficulties, that I'm really going to engage in the Dharma. And then when those difficulties ease, then I kind of have a holiday.
Yeah.
And it's just this kind of think of, oh, now I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not, it's a temporary fine.
Yeah, and again, it just shows us that we're not familiar with the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha, but how deep it goes. So yeah, so just and we are samsaric things like we're quite. That's enough. I'm happy, and don't realize, you're still in samsara. So so again, the tricky thing is how the language works and how you apprehend it. Right? So nirvana is magnificent because it's the supreme source of benefit and happiness. So remember, nirvana is nothing other than the empty nature of your own mind. So the mind has been, like I said, empty from the get-go. It's always been empty. The mind itself has no intrinsic nature, and the disturbing emotions have no intrinsic nature. They've been empty too, always from the get-go. And we, as people, self, name, it's empty. Right? It's called like natural nirvana. That's the natural nirvana. So then others, of course, think there might be some state that's much better than this, it's greater than this. And this is saying, look, there isn't. But realizing the nature of your own mind there's nothing more that needs to be done here. There's no greater phenomenon that you could ever experience than that. And of course, this state produces a sense of freedom. So I left this one here. It's like, so the person who was once imprisoned has gone, but the ball remains. And so once we are free, once the mind is free, it can't be back imprisoned again. It's the same thing I used before about this. Once you understand that the woman you thought was your mother is not your mother, you don't go back there and say she is and act as if she is. So what's this understanding to do? And this is what often people have, as you're saying with me, right? So especially within Western psychology, but like
Can you
so
just read it out?
yeah. So this counters the wrong idea that liberation is reversible. Right? So this is why I put the padlocks back on. It's like, oh, they went and grabbed, they caught the slave and imprisoned her again. But this is impossible when we talk about cessations, nirvana, peace, and freedom. Right? The mind cannot be re-imprisoned. It's like, say, you don't, once you know something is wrong, you don't take it back on again and go, well, it's right. And so here's like the table, right? So this table is in that particular book, Samsara, Nirvana, and Buddha Nature. And like I said, this is why I find it so useful because you can just put it all up there and go, oh, okay. I can very quickly look at this table and go, right, this is the distortion here, believing that such a state does not exist at all. So, like it's always interesting on the side of the distorted conceptions because people will bring them up to you and say, no, that's impossible. Just ask them why. What's the evidence? So again, like just look up on your guys' site, so you have access to it. Well, there's a lot of interesting. I mean, we've had a good talk already, haven't we? And I mean, you know, we do need to talk to one another about this material and find out, as you've said, Susan, why, or what's that word mean? Otherwise, we don't know. We need to allow our doubts to come up and then tackle them. So
can we do a little meditation?
Yes. Yes, here we go. This is the one. Let's do this meditation. Okay. So get comfortable in your seat. Allow yourself to breathe normally and naturally and relax into the body. And allow the mind to be curious about this true cessations. So true cessations are known by noble persons. They are called noble persons because they have realized these true cessations. So the truth of cessation has how many attributes? So imagine a noble person is in front of you. They've been talking to you about the truth of cessation, and they say the truth of cessation has 4 attributes. And then you say, okay, so what are the first 2 of these 4 attributes of the truth of cessation? And you will hear the noble person say the first is cessation and the second is peace. And you think, okay, I've got that, cessation and peace. And what are the next 2 attributes? And you remember magnificent and freedom. So you say to this noble person, why is nirvana magnificent? What do you hear her say? So nirvana is magnificent because it is the supreme source of benefit and happiness. And so what? What idea, what distorted idea does this overcome? And you hear this noble person say, there is no state superior to the cessation of dukkha and its origins. This is why it is magnificent. And then you say to this noble person, I heard you say that it was freedom. And she says, yes. And so what does that mean? And the noble person says to you, it's freedom because it's the total, irreversible release from samsara. Irreversible release from samsara is freedom. So you wonder, what sort of distorted ideas does this stop? As well, it stops the wrong idea that liberation is reversible, that you could become a slave to your afflictions again. The noble person says this stops the wrong idea that the ultimate state of peace can degenerate. Then the noble person says to you, I want you to ask yourself, what are you without referring to thought to tell you what you are? So I'm asking myself the question, what am I? And you're not going to refer to thought to tell you who you are, what you are. Who am I when I don't allow thought to tell myself who I am? And I just release the cessation, release that state of freedom, bring your mind back to the present. And you can sort of reflect upon this, which is a means to encourage ourselves. Don't stop yourself part way. Continue to completely free. Don't be satisfied with temporary sensations. Bring about a state of absolute freedom. Okay, so that brings us to our end of our class. And so, that such a truth of cessation does exist. Of course, we're going to forget the definition of it, but over time we might hold on to it. It has 4 attributes, which are cessation, peace, magnificence, and freedom. And these 4 ideas overcome 4 wrong ideas. And there's this, like I said, so I'm not going to stop. The freedom is up to yourself. It's the mind that is undisciplined that has imprisoned us. A disciplined mind will bring about freedom. So before we come up for looking at what's for next week, is there anything finally you'd like to ask or say?
Stop the share and let people have a go.
Yep. We all good? Okay. So I encourage you to try and read anything about true cessations. So you remember the 4 truths were taught. Dukkha exists and it has origins. So that's the suffering side. Now we're on to the side of freedom. Always remember there's 4 truths taught. One is talking about our suffering when we're imprisoned by our karma and our delusions. And the other side where we're talking about now is what it's like to be free. And next week, how you bring about that freedom. So please, Never forget that. There are four truths, not two. It's not just suffering in its origins. If there were just that, Buddha, please be quiet. Right? But there are four truths. So, of course, he spoke about them. He told us you can be free. This is the way to bring about your freedom. So we'll talk about that next week. I'm so pleased that you both turned up. All of you are here, and you had all those good questions. So this is the way of creating merit. And that's really good. So let's dedicate this merit, saying, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born arise and grow, and may that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. And then lastly, for our great spiritual mentor, Lama Rinpoche, let's make these requests that a new emanation appears shortly to help us. So in holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. That incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make this request. So we've come to the end. We're just a little bit over, but I'm so pleased you're all here and that we could talk about the truth of cessation tonight. So thank you, Michael, for hosting. Thank you, Susan and Barbara, for being here. And Alice, I can't see, but thank you for attending too. Thanks, Miffy, for all your help. And we'll see you guys.
And Eddie, thank you to you. This was a great class again. Thank you. And thank you, everybody else.
Okay.
Thank you, Eddie.